So let's jump into yet again another Transformers Slag podcast Patreon listener question. Once again, if you want to be part of the Transformers Slag podcast Patreon, help support the podcast. Let us know we're doing a half-decent job here in the Transformer world, keeping you educated, entertained, and informed on the Transformer hobby and everything that's going on in our world. Patreon.com/Protoman. Or check the pinned comment or description below. And what does it get you if you join the Patreon? It gets your name in the end credit scroll at the end of every segment, asks access to our exclusive Discord, where we share lore, we break the news, we do all kinds of discussion. You save money on your hobby with our sales section. We always post new sales that are happening in the Transformer world, so you don't have to pay full price for your hobby, as well as downloads, all kinds of great stuff there. And depending on what tier, you might get a little something in the mail. Also, we have our TFCon exclusive that might be coming up soon, where certain patrons of a certain tier might get it for free. And of course, depending on what tier, you might get a, Patreon listener question chance up at bat. And we got one here today from TTR, one of our patrons, and he wants to know, hey, Protoman, what is the ideal scale that you have in mind for a Masterpiece Rodimus Prime if he came out in Takara Masterpiece line today? Can you describe things that you'd like to see, like the transformation, what kind of gimmicks you'd like to see, accessories included, his price point, and so on that you would imagine? Thank you so much for what you do, TTR. Well, thank you, TTR, for being a patron and a pretty good Patreon listener question. So I'm going to assume you mean like a revisit to this, because obviously we had the MP9 Rodimus back in 2010 that was done by Hinori Kobayashi way back in the day. And, we're seeing this thing now with Masterpiece where they're revisiting popular characters and giving them a modern spin on things more than anything else. I mean, we had like Optimus Prime that got revisited twice. We have Bumblebee, we have Starscream, we have Megatron. I'm pretty sure at some point they're probably going to revisit even Soundwave and Grimlock. But Rodimus was one of those guys that he came out with MP09 right at the turning point of Masterpiece aesthetically, because Hinori Kobayashi did MP01, he did the Grimlock, he did the Starscream. He was part of that early era of Masterpiece design. He worked on the MP01 with Aaron Archer all those years ago. And he even worked with Kawamori with the Starscream. And then he did MP09 Rodimus, which that has its own story and all the craziness that he talked about in interviews, how, it was supposed to be a Rodimus Convoy, Rodimus Prime, and then they wanted to put the hot rod transformation element in it, and that kind of messed with everything, and it didn't become the toy that he was kind of hoping it could be in the end. And then, of course, when we went to MP10 afterwards, you enter the Shogo Hasui era, and that's kind of how Masterpiece kind of became afterwards, MP10 onward, with the odd, Beast Wars, Yuki Ashima kind of design here and there. Kobayashi came back to do tracks with MP25, wasn't received very well, unfortunately. And then, of course, when we had MP28 Hot Rodimus, where they did a standalone hot rod, it wasn't Shogo Hasui, it wasn't Kobayashi. They got Yuya Onishi to kind of work on that one. And Yuya was kind of unfamiliar with how Masterpiece budget was back then, so it kind of was a miss, in my opinion. It wasn't the best hot rod toy it could have been. Yuya, years later, would then go on to do Studio Series 86 Rodimus, hot rod, and would knock it out of the park, and would learn everything that he learned from that Masterpiece, MP28, he'd apply to the Studio Series 86. And in my opinion, if we ever do get a new hot rod, just look at that Studio Series 86 and just put the budget into that one, if anything, But if we revisited it, so let's say we revisit, we're doing a standalone Masterpiece Rodimus Convoy, Masterpiece Rodimus Prime. So the first thing that you're saying here is like, so how would the transformation have to be, right? Well, I would say just kind of look at what they did with the War for Cybertron Kingdom Commander class Rodimus. They pretty much hit it out of the park in terms of how they want to do a transformation and appeal stuff. Obviously, not a one-for-one. There'd obviously have to be some scaling issues. There'd have to be some aesthetic changes and stuff to really match the animation model. But in terms of a general foundation of a goal, I would say really look at that. Have the trailer, the transformation element. the way that the chest opens up and has the storage of the matrix. You want to kind of have all of those elements there that have to be key with a Masterpiece Rodimus. When you're talking the gimmicks, again, matrix of leadership in the chest, that's really it in a lot of ways. Rodimus Convoy, Rodimus Prime as a character doesn't have a lot of gimmicks. So outside of how you're going to open up that chest to have a matrix storage gimmick, maybe you want to have a light up matrix. Maybe the matrix will light up, have that element then. So that's a battery kind of thing. But you're going to really want to, in my opinion, try to keep the accessories and the gimmicks on a down low, because this is where we get into stuff like accessories and the price point, and specifically also the scale, because this is where it gets a little crazy. I imagine him kind of being in the same scale of MP44 3.0 Convoy, which is our latest Masterpiece G1 Optimus Prime. The problem with that is that Convoy is the most expensive retail Transformer ever made. It was 50,000 yen, which when you do exchange is about $420. I mean, obviously we don't count stuff like HasLab Unicron, that's a crowdfunded item. But in terms of retail product, at least in Japan, it was the most expensive thing that Transformers has ever done. And I imagine it being in that scale with that Optimus. Something where that thing could be side by side with that Optimus, shaking hands and everything. And it just would work out. And that would be the foundation in terms of the scale. But that Optimus was filled with bells and whistles and accessories and stuff like that weren't really necessary. And I feel that you could do something that's in scale with that Optimus, have the trailer that transforms, have the turret, have a light up matrix of leadership and an opening chest for a matrix of leadership, give him his photon eliminator gun. It doesn't have to split apart and make two guns, because that's a hot rod kind of thing. Just have it be the one big gun that looks really nice, but at least have that. And then afterwards, you don't need to put all the other extra bells and whistles that boost that price completely up. You could have maybe a smaller matrix for the chest, a larger matrix to be held, and that'll have the light up accessory with it. That's the way I see it. You don't need a fishing pole. You don't need a saw hand. Those are all hot rod ideas. You don't need to have a sword of Primus. That's a comic book idea. Masterpiece is all about G1 animation accuracy, so you don't need to include extra stuff that aren't necessarily reflective of what the show was. So just kind of try to achieve that goal of doing a masterpiece that's trying to be the animation model, and just include the stuff that the animation model had. And that's really a short list with with Rodimus Prime. So that's the way I would see it. You could keep the cost down that way and just achieve what you really need to achieve. If you have to really, really force an extra accessory, like if you want to have one more thing, I don't know, do a only human scaled Rodimus Prime figure of the human version, and have him scale with all those other MP Masterpiece human figures that they've done up to that point, Marissa Fairborn, Spike, and stuff like that. So that's the only other extra accessory I could kind of imagine if you want to squeeze one in. And that would be it. Try to keep it low. I mean, I could still see it end up being like a $400 item or like $350. I mean, Masterpiece prices are going up and up like crazy. But that's kind of the place that I could kind of see it fitting in. And just have it be that scale, and it'll all work out in the end. When to release it, though, I would see them saving some time, not do it anytime soon. 2026, do it then. You could do it then, because then that could be like some kind of 40th anniversary kind of thing. You could do like, oh, hey, it's the 40th anniversary of season 3 in Japan, Transformers the movie. So you could kind of do that as an anniversary item too on top of it, and it would all just balance out and work out. That's the way I kind of see it. But, maybe you feel differently, but that's kind of how I would do it with him, because I wasn't really happy with what they did with MP28 Hot Rodimus, and it was kind of a miss. But now that we've had a really good Studio Series 86 Hot Rod and a really good Commander class Rodimus Prime, they could take what they've learned from those and then engineer upward with the bigger price point and bigger budget that is Masterpiece, and just do something really good. At least that's the way I see it. But what do you think? What do you think should be done? Who should be the next Masterpiece in a lot of opinion? I know some people are still waiting for that Galvatron. Where's a Galvatron after all this time? Maybe do a Masterpiece Rodimus Prime, a new one, 2.0, and then do a Galvatron, perhaps. But let me know what you think. And again, if you want to be like TTR and join the Patreon and just hang out, check out the Discord, or just have your name in the end credits, or you just want to support the podcast, again, patreon.com/Protoman, or check the pin comment or the description below. And thanks again for all the love and support, guys, and we'll talk to you again really soon on the Transformers Slag podcast, and I hope you learned something today.